Okay, we're back again. Now this is going to be part 4. Hopefully we don't have 5 parts to this thing. I won't go through hand setting because everybody should know that after seeing some of my videos, watching this progression go. This part here, this last assembly, this is the only way I've come up with to assemble this complication like this. I've tried many different things, tinkered with it, toyed with it, and what I'm doing now is the only way I've been able to figure this out. And it can be scary, it can be frustrating, to say the least. What we need to do is drop that lever onto that post, like so. Then we need to install that spring. And it's going to be in this orientation. Okay. That is how that spring has to be. And it's got to be captured in that little cutout. So when you put everything together, that spring is going to hold that lever in place. Then you pick up the entire assembly, gently lay it on top of your movement while pushing in this lever to engage the teeth on the date wheel, the numbers, and hold that in place while you put a screw in. 3 screws total. Once you get 1 screw in and that doesn't move, everything's captured. It won't come apart. If you take a look and that spring has sprung and that lever is off its post, you got to start over. So this is the frustrating part of this movement. When you get it done, wow, you're like, woohoo, look at that, I got it done. Very frustrating for me. Sometimes I can do it, one shot, put it on, works beautifully. Other times 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. After that, I'm taking a break. I'm getting off of this thing and I'm starting over another time or another day, maybe another week, who knows. Now, how do we get that spring in there? Very gently. That's all I can say. It's a wild spring. That thing, once it's captured, it's got a lot of energy stored in it. If that thing takes off, you will definitely know. Once it's in there and seated, it seems pretty stable. So, what do I like to do first? Put in one side and then the other? I don't remember. But here's what I'm going to do. We're going to put the long end in so it is contacting the lever. This part here, we have to compress and shove it in that groove, all the while keeping things still, not have anything move, not have that spring jump out. And if it takes off, well, I guess we could shove a piece of Rotico on there, but I like to use a finger and hold on to it. But basically, my finger will probably close the shot or block the shot. We're going to move that lever all the way over. Sounds simple. Well, it is simple. How hard can it be? Put a spring on, a lever. I'm also doing this working with this camera, so that makes things a little tough for me. So the first thing I do is hold it in place, like that. And then come in here, push that spring down. Okay, that didn't work out so good. But you see what happened? The spring is now in place. Okay, this is maybe what I did. It's probably been 2 years since I even touched one of these movements, so I'm learning as I go here, trying to remember what I did. So let's do this. We're going to hold the tail end of that spring so I can at least move it. See how that moves? We're going to drop this on top of the spring Or maybe I'll do this. Hold the spring out of the way with my finger while putting the lever on. Does that work? Does that make sense? Like I said, if somebody else has a better way to do this, I'd love to know. Maybe the people who assembled these had a tool to do this. This can be quite tedious. Okay, it can be very tedious, let's be honest. Okay, it's in there. You can see a little bit of movement, and that is going to spring pop out of there. Okay, there's the first step. Very fun, isn't it? Now, we can pick this up. We can move it around. We're not going to jostle it. We're not going to drop it. Got to be very gentle. If that spring takes off, who knows where it ends up? Luckily, you'll have another one or a good magnet and you can pick it up. So here's our movement where we left off in part 3. Okay, that's a pretty clear shot. Our our number wheel, let's call it, we're going to lay in there. And that just sits like so. Making sure this is engaged in those teeth. This is a Saturday morning, so I got the shakes from too much coffee. Although I did have a Gewürztraminer with breakfast. What? You had a glass of wine with breakfast? Yes, I did. I made a mushroom and scallion cheese omelet, and it pairs nicely with a German Gewürztraminer. Not a lot, just a nice cold glass of Gewürztraminer. Goes great with omelets, believe it or not. Give it a try, you might like it. I'm not saying you got to drink a whole bottle and get banged up, but a little tiny glass with breakfast is very nice. Although it doesn't take the edge off from the caffeine shakes. So, we're going to take this. We're going to pick that up. Yep, that's what we're going to do. We're going to pick it up and we're going to lay it in here the way it should go. Very gently, like that. See that little lever sticking out? We have to activate that lever while pressing down on this plate. I'm going to get that plate lined up as best I can. So when I lean on it, it snaps in those pins. Come on. Yeah. Yeah. Dozen cups of coffee will do this to you. Dozen cups of coffee with no cream or sugar. Yikes. I didn't think I had that bad of the shakes today. Okay, that is the position of that. That's exactly how that goes. What we need to do next, we need to activate that lever, push it in while pushing down on this plate, hold it in place with a finger or tweezers or whatever you have, pick up a screw and start it, and if all goes well, we're done. If not, we're going to have to start over. So, what I do, I put a little bit of pressure at first, then I take that lever, push it in, and press down. Did you hear that snap? I did. That little snap is a joyful snap. That means it sat on the pins, and looking at that lever and its spring, it is in fact captured. If I do this on one shot, one take, I will be surprised. because it is frustrating. Now this little guy, you can see it's resting on this bugger. Just move that out of the way, and that'll fall into that. Because of that spring loaded, you need to just make sure it's out of the way. And I'm going to drop in 2 more screws so we have that plate and all the levers captured. If you can master that lever spring technique I just did with that plate and do it in one shot, you'll love working on these. These are great movements to service and work on and tinker with and restore, what have you, because they're just so cool. And if you can master that part that I just did, it's a cool feeling. I'd like to see somebody do it differently. I've tried many different ways. Okay, 3 screws are in. If you notice, this opening has a spring. Let's get a better shot of that. Okay, look at the light reflecting off of that lever and how that spring is pressing against it. Here's my test. See that? It's working. That's not going to come out. The spring's not going to come out. Now, with this opening up here, you would think, well, that opening's there for a reason. Like the Vostok's, it has the opening. You must be able to slide that movement, or that spring, in there. I can't. I've tried it. Perhaps you can, or come up with a system where you can put that lever in and then feed the spring in later. I cannot get it to work. Believe me, I've spent many hours tinkering with these. Of all the movements I studied to learn repair and watch service, this was the first one. I thought, hey, why not start with something complicated and go to the easy stuff? Now, how does this system work? It works just like that. This mechanism up here, this lever, advances it. This lever holds it in place and allows it to only rotate in one direction. Let's get a shot of that. So here we are, we're coming around to midnight. Keep an eye on that upper spring, how it's backing up, and that lower spring doesn't allow that ring to move. Then it snaps, advances it, and this spring allows it to advance and hold it in place. That's pretty slick. Also, it has that part of that lever is the quick setter. Okay, there we go. We did that in one take, one shot. Could be frustrating, could make you just about mad. Now, there's our date wheel. The last piece to go on, and it'll be nice because it'll speed up this video. I don't have to do 16 takes. Here is the back side of our day wheel, and that's just going to rest on the top like that. However, we need to install that spring I was showing you earlier that I couldn't figure out where the heck does that go. We got a piece of lint on that. Let's blow that off. Hit that with some Rodico. Okay. Considerably easier to do this operation than what we just did, and you'll see why. Painfully simple. That is going to rest like that. That shouldered bolt screw is going to go right here. This, well, let's do that first. Let's do that. Let's put that shouldered screw in. I don't put lubrication on these. There's such a liberal fit, and there's enough slop in there. You don't need lubrication. Some things work better without lubrication. Okay, now that spring is kind of loose and free. So this post over here, that spring has to go on the other side. And we just pick it up. Actually, I like to scoop it up like a flapjack. Let's do that. Let's show the scoop and move technique. I like to come in with a thin bladed screwdriver. See if this comes up. You don't want to bend that spring. You don't want to overwork it. But I'm going to hold the spring, pick it up with my screwdriver, and then, oh, it didn't even show up in the video. Alright, genius, let's try this again. Put it in the shot. There we go. Pick up the spring. Trying to watch the video, but there we go. Now that spring is loaded, you can see where it contacts that area. But as we install that day wheel, this has to be moved out of the way. Very easy to do. And this little pin right here is what advances that. Okay? So we have our day wheel. Let's give that a blast. Don't put lubrication on this shaft either. This just seems to work better without lubrication. Okay. You just drop it on there. Okay. Now if you look through that hole, you can see that lever, that detent lever. That hole gives you access so you could move that lever out of the way and then drop in the day wheel. Very slick, very easy. I can just reach in here, move that aside, press down on it, and there it goes. That's held in place. Now, when our dial goes on top, it'll have that wave washer. It'll put pressure on that day wheel to hold it in place so it doesn't pop out. And if you set your time, let's come around and set the time to watch that click over, you'll know everything's working good. Since I don't have hands on here, I didn't set the hands, I don't know what time it is, so I'm just rotating this around like I'm advancing the time. There it goes. Look at that. And then there goes the date. Oh, you know what? It doesn't work that way. Okay. It popped up, but you get the idea. It popped up. See how it popped up? You get the idea how it works. Once you have that out of the way and the dial is on, it will advance properly. Okay. There we go. Now, if you remember, the dial does not mount to the movement. The dial mounts to this ring. And this ring has this advancing mechanism here, and it has the dial feet mounting screws right there. So how do we get this back into there? Well, it's rather easy, believe it or not. It has a cutout right there. That's for the winding stem, and we just go opposite. You know what? We could actually do this. We could take this off. I may have gotten ahead of myself. Let's do this. Let's take that off, because if I loosen it while doing this, we're going to have to redo it anyway. So there we go. We have that off. That lever right here, that lever has to be fed into that slot right there. Very easy to do. It's not very complicated. Let's pull back a bit. We have our stem holding it at 3 o'clock, and we are basically see if we can get this. We're basically going to take this and we're going to feed it in and then drop it down. Does that make sense? Clear as mud, I know. Okay, let's get a better shot of that if I can. This may not show too well, but the bottom line is it can be done. It doesn't require. Okay, there it is. I fed that lever in. I come around and drop the movement into that ring. There we go. It's tough to show on this video, but it does work. It can be done, and it's quite nice how it all fits in there snugly. Okay, next we're going to, and everybody has seen this, I'm sure, we're going to put our mounting screws here, one across from it, put our dial on, our hands on. But this is pretty much it for this movement. It is done. We are good to go, and everybody got a chance to see how we put that complication together. Can be tedious. Take your time, work at it, be patient. When you get this thing done and it runs good and it ticks over the day and the date at midnight and it looks cool and you got good timekeeping, it's a success. Doesn't matter how long it takes you. Might take you forever and a day, or it might take you a couple of days or an afternoon to do one of these. I would say don't give up. Just take your time. They're fun to work on. Once you master this little operation I showed you, maybe you can come up with a better way. I'd love to see it. I'd love to do things simpler, but it doesn't work for me. So, till then, that's it for the Slava 2428.